Blue Collar Millionaires. Man, I'm excited because we've got our mastermind showing up this week. So we've got some, what is it, Kevin? We've got nine individuals that's going to show up at a mansion in Miramar Beach, which is pretty much Destin, Florida. And we're going to sit there and discuss strategy, boutique strategy that is precise for their situation right now. We've got some amazing speakers. We've got Ben Hill that's going to show up on Zoom, and he's going to be communicating about how to optimize your Google presence. We've got John Federa. He's going to be communicating about how to find the money that you need to be able to scale your business, to acquire a business. And then we're going to be talking to Mike. His last name's slipping.
Mike Burns.
Yeah, sorry about that. Mike Burns. He's going to be telling his story of how he just rose up from rags to riches pretty much, and how he's weathering the storm in the mortgage market as well. Then me and Kevin are going to be discussing VAs and affiliate partners and operational aspects of how where you can scale your business, how to actually get to scale so you can take it back to the market. So very excited. We don't have a guest this week. Me and Kevin wanted to come on here, and we just kind of wanted to talk from our experience about how to create a place where A players want to show up to and stay, because without having a home that they desire to go to, you're not going to be able to attract them. And if you actually get one in by accident, they're not going to stay.
Huh.
So Kevin, you've got quite a bit of experience in a bunch of different industries. I have gone through a journey from startup. And I think that's what the coolest thing is about us is we've had tons of startups. So we've really got to feel the pain and the suffering of not knowing what to do. And then finally, when you start getting some success, you make these mental notes of, yeah, let me do that again. So what's your first thoughts about this subject?
I think that when you start a company yourself, you can't provide that, but that's okay. Because you're basically doing everything yourself. You're grabbing one guy, whoever, to help you. So it's okay. But as you evolve, you have to make your company attractive, even for that one person.
Yeah.
Because they will leave you and they probably won't give you any notice, and it can turn you upside down. If you're cutting lawns and you got two guys, and I had this happen to me, and both guys left on the same Sunday.
Wow. So you were back solopreneur in it.
I mean, I was doing like 2 man's work. So we had 3 guys, but I was doing like 2 man's work. I was killing myself. And then they both did it. And they went to another company that I knew the guy who was bigger than me. He had better trucks. He had everything better. And they had their brother-in-law was over there, and he was probably in their ear all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't like it. I was pissed all week, but I had to tell myself it's a better company.
Right. You would have done the same thing.
Yeah. And I think he was paying them like another $1 more, but he was giving them like paid lunch. I was like, just eat and keep going, basically, like I didn't have any type of structure. I was working them to the bone.
Yeah. So I had a coach tell me one time, it was Kelly Garrett. She's been on this show, and she said, Chris, you have to ask yourself when you're looking for these A players, because you're an A player yourself. You have to ask yourself, would you move from a current job to the position that you have the offer? And if the answer is no, then you've got to start painting a picture of why someone as an A player would move from their current position over to the position that you have to offer.
Wow.
And then I also pulled from Ben Hill we were at Chris Rude's mastermind, sitting around the pool, smoking a cigar, drinking a beer. Everybody was on relaxed time. It's the last night of the event. And we were discussing, and he was talking about how he gets so many applicants and kind of how he goes through his recruiting hiring process. But he said, man, he said, so many times business owners make their ad about themselves, about what the company is and how they function and the 5-star reviews. He said, someone that's interested. We're all selfish people, and we've got to remember that these people are thinking about what is in it for them. So what are they getting? Let's talk about the atmosphere that they're going to be a part of. Let's talk about the community and that family feel. And I know a lot of people will say, hey, it's not a family, it's a workplace. But people are drawn to feeling like they have friends because you spend the majority of your time at work. And so if they feel like they're going to have camaraderie at work, that's something that they would be interested in. Pay obviously is a big deal, but are you going to be happy? Because pay is not going to cover up an unhappy, dreading to go to work every single day. And those two comments really made me reevaluate the way we communicate and move in my company, and also how we produce our ads at this point for recruiting.
I like that. I like what both of them said, but specifically Kelly.
Yeah,
because the person you want is already working somewhere.
Absolutely.
He's not sitting on his couch, because you don't have to offer that person much of anything, but they're just going to work 3 weeks and quit on you anyway. Will you leave your job? Yeah, the mistake I made is I thought it was about money. So I thought, well, if you're making back then 10 somewhere and I'm offering 14, you'll just go. But I remember somebody, I asked him in September, I was talking to him. He was doing a job and I was going to pay him something like that, like 16, and he was making like 11. And then he was like, well, what am I going to do in the winter?
Yeah.
And I remember I wanted to be like, don't worry about that. Like, just come over here and make a bunch of money for like 3 months. And then I thought, like, you make $10 an hour, you could go do that anywhere. Right. I didn't have an answer for him. And that's what he cared about. But people aren't going to go over for $2 an hour. You have to make it. Yeah. Would you leave for $2 an hour? That's $80 a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
an A player. And an A player is not sitting at $10, $12 an hour at this point. So this is a good question then. When you're a smaller company, this is one reason we preach not to purchase these small companies. You want to find something with good cash flow, because they've gotten past this problem right here that we're talking about, which is I don't have enough revenue to pay really high rates. I don't have the nice trucks and brand new equipment and uniforms and everything else going. So you have to sit there and ask, what is going to attract someone that's on their journey up? And it's going to be opportunity. So you've got to paint this vision of where you're going, and you've got to be a good salesman about your passion. And here's the deal. Sales, a lot of people, as soon as I say you have to be a salesman, they're like, well, I'm not a salesman. That's just not my personality. Yeah, but are you passionate about something? If you're driving it home every single day and you're pushing and putting the due diligence and wearing all the hats, and you're in a startup mode, or you've got a small company that's doing less than $1 million in revenue, you can sell your passion, and that passion itself will sell the story. You just have to remember, paint the picture of where they can go. People move for opportunity. Some of the most recent hires I've had, I said, what makes you want to come and work at this company? I asked that question specifically because I do want to know their motivation. And most of the people are easily able to pull motivation out. The majority of the response is I want more opportunity because I feel like I've topped out where I'm currently at. If they feel like they're always going to be that $12 an hour guy pushing the lawnmower, and they're never going to get an opportunity to move up into management and increase their income, then they are not going to stick with you. As soon as the next person comes around with $1 increase in pay, they're moving. But if they feel like they have opportunity for management position, for education, to get better at their craft through your company, they'll be more apt to stick around. And that's what I've noticed. The people that are still with me are the ones that wanted to grow. And now I only hire people that have a mentality of growth. I don't hire the people that are okay with just staying at the bottom. And that means I got to hire more, because if they do grow, they're going to be moving up as we expand. So I have to hire those lower positions. But simply having opportunity available for someone is one thing that's going to attract. If they feel like they're going to hit a glass ceiling, they're going to move on to the next person. You will not get an A player.
I totally agree. And here's another thing. Like, if you go to a college, if you're going to go to college to play football or basketball, you'll go on a recruiting visit. and other players will kind of walk you around campus and they're going to tell you about their experience. And they always bring somebody who they think's kind of lined up with, might have been from the same place you were, grew up in, and now they're a senior and they're killing it. They want you to see that trajectory. You have to do that as well. I did that as well. Like, I would try to take somebody and I'd say, listen, like, I want them to see that they can be kind of in this person's position very soon, you know, like in 6 months, 9 months. Like, you could be making a lot of money. You could have some clout, people like that. Like, you're running the crew.
Yeah.
You're getting paid on the crew's money, like a bonus. So I would show them that. And some people would move super fast.
I love how you also paint the pictures, even for your virtual assistants. You paint the picture of buying a home. This is what you're going to be able to do with me as you make money with this business, this company, my establishment. And it gets them out of just the workplace. It puts it close to home, to where the reason why they actually get up and go to work. They get up and go to work to have money to spend on necessities and then on things of enjoyment, like having a nice home, taking a vacation, having a nicer ride to move around town in. And I've noticed how you've communicated several times, and I thought it was pretty cool that you even did it with your virtual assistants. And you spoke about how your virtual assistants have been able to purchase homes because of the opportunity that your company has provided for them.
I mean, that gets me excited. They show me pictures of how homes being built and what they're buying and land they bought. Like, I'll watch those videos like 3 times. I'm more excited. I'm as excited as they are.
Yeah.
You know, and they're so nice. Oh, Gutter King did this. I said, no, I just gave you the opportunity. You did it, because lots of people had it.
Exactly.
But I love to see that. And then, that's really been a snowball effect, because a lot of them are connected. In fact, one has hired many of them. So they look at her, and then they saw that path to, like, oh, I can get a bigger home, and like, she's got rental properties, and like, her life is way better. And it's absolutely happening. The ones that have been around the longest are doing that now. They're kind of following her lead. That's super powerful as well. So
that's the same thing as your sports analogy, the college going the recruitment side. I mean, your team is doing recruiting for you. And I think that's why it's so important to make sure that you get the right people that fit your culture, that are in alignment with the mindset of the company, because it's amazing how much the team talks. Like, it doesn't matter how much I'm like, hey, just keep your compensation or your bonuses to yourself. Before the week's over with, I even learned that my team has a group text outside of our GroupMe app where we communicate on, just the technicians, because they communicate back and forth. It's camaraderie there. And if you can have a positive, if everybody loves where they're at, and you find an A player and they walk and they get to start communicating with the team, that's going to determine where they're actually going to hire on or stay. And they might actually hire on, but in their head, they're thinking, I'm out as soon as I get another offer. If there's negativity within the group, that is your branding for your team members, is the team members themselves.
Yeah. Here's another thing that's like, people don't do this, but I did it. And this was big for me. I let foremen. So a lot of times when we had 4 guys in a van, and I would call it seat 1, 2, 3, 4. The 1 is like basically the driver. He's running stuff. The number 2 is, he basically could do that. And he's going to become a number 1 soon. He's a super strong player as well. And 3 and 4, I hoped that they were good at their job, but maybe they had a license issue or whatever it was. Yep. They kind of handicapped themselves. Anyway, the number 1, and one guy in particular, he's still with me. He's great. He doesn't like he doesn't like any BS. Like, he doesn't like any lazy people or hungover people or smoking. So he would just ask me, I'd love to get rid of this guy. And sometimes I would stick people from other teams on his thing and he wouldn't like that. So he asked me, can I just build my own team? let me build my own team.
That's an
And
A player.
he built his own team. And then he started and then if something happened, like he would say, I'm going to get rid of him. I got somebody else better. I know somebody. Can I do that? And I'd say, go ahead. He's so much happier. I started letting other people do that too. Like they feel really good about it. It's like if you go play sports and you build your own team, you know what, you have a good chance of winning. But I watch my brother, because my brother loves his work, but his number one thing is he hates like lazy people. And he comes home at work at 1 a.m. and he gives me like 10 minutes of earful about this kid he calls Ghost because the kid disappears the whole time. And this other guy, Def Jeff or something, because he doesn't listen to anybody. He's got all these nicknames. I know all the characters. He's not deaf.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, who would you, I always say, who would you get rid of? Oh, I'll get rid of Ghost in 2 seconds. I'd fire him tomorrow. And these other guys. And I think if they let him, he'd probably do a lot better. He'd be much happier.
Yeah.
He feels like he's constantly picking up their slack. I know he is too, because that's how he works. And the manager, it's almost like the manager's above it, so they don't have the feel that my brother does, but he's in it and it's driving him nuts. And he would love to bring in somebody he knew who he knows is going to work.
So, I mean, I think that's huge right there. So when I just changed everything over to commission based on my techs, I gave them the opportunity and I just made a post about this yesterday about profit sharing. And the way I did it within my company is probably it's like a hybrid of profit sharing, but it created a level of peer pressure. And so my A players are going to get vocal when they're because everybody's getting paid the same. It's based off of the income coming into the company on the jobs they work on. So if your team member, let's talk about your brother right there. If they were getting paid off the sales of the lumber yard area that he was working in, and all of them got paid equally off of the gross sales of that yard, and he was given the power to write up other individuals that would ultimately create a firing situation if they get enough write-ups, then he would be in somewhat control and peer pressure would start. Instead of him coming and giving you an earful, he'd be writing them up. And they would have so many write-ups that would hit management, and then management would be like, hey, man, this is what's going on. This is repetitive. We're going to let you go. And now what's happened is you've created these little demi owners of the company because they own that group, that section. So if it's just like a sports team. If you're the lineman and you're not holding your line in a football game and it's sacking the quarterback, dude, your entire team's going to get pissed off because you're not going to be scoring. Absolutely. And you're not going to win the game, which means you're not walking away with the ring at the end of the year. There's no hope in it. And so they get really hard. And I love that level of peer pressure. And that's what happens when you start giving some control to the team and getting their interest aligned with the company's interest. And I feel like that's one way that I've been able to attract A players at this point, is because I let them know, here's what we're going to provide for you. And here's the level of ownership that you have in the company. If you don't like what's happening with your team and they're weighing you down because everybody's getting paid equally, then you go fill this form out and you submit it. And at 3 forms, performance reviews submitted, we're going to have the opportunity to let somebody go. Also,
Chris, I got to take this location.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Also, another thing that is great about that, and the reason A players like to get inside of this type of culture of a company, is the fact that they also have those benefits of an owner. So if I walk away from my company and go on vacation, I still have cash flow coming in. And when these guys get sick because they operate in this profit sharing as a team, if they're sick, they still have income coming in while the rest of the team is out there. But on the flip side, if they're going to sit there and ride I'm sick, I got a bellyache, and constantly calling in, that team is going to get upset and they're going to start communicating with that team member. And ultimately, they're going to write them up and submit it to management so management can take care of the situation. So one of that's one of the things I feel like that creates a culture that an A player likes. And we tell our interviewees about how we operate in the company that way, because I have found when you hand over, the more control and responsibility you hand over, not responsibility, the more control that you will give a person, you're going to get ownership buy-in. If you say, hey, here's your task to do, you're not communicating with an A player when you hand task off, because task says, I do this and I'm done. A players are motivated to move the entire ship down the river. Task people that are not A players that just are motivated off task, they're going to sit there and say, okay, I raised the sail, and they just stand there and wait to be given another command. And it makes you have to micromanage. And an A player doesn't like to be micromanaged. So this is why I try to give, here's an expectation. We need to get this boat down the river. I need this job to be completed by this date, and we need to dry out this portion of the structure. They know exactly what to do at that point, and they execute. So pulling back and kind of talking about overall some bullet points of what is going to create a atmosphere that's attractive to A players is, one, we already spoke about, is the opportunity. Are they going to cap out, or do they have opportunity to grow their skill set and their pay? So the other thing is we let them know, hey, we're going to invest in you. I like to pull up benchmarks of the industry that I'm in, that I'm recruiting for. And I like to say, here is the levels. Here's an organization chart, and here's the levels that you can move to. And here's typical time frames that it takes the average person that applies themselves to move up in this company. Here's the education that's going to be required, the skill set that's required for you to get to this level of management in the company. Here's what they're getting paid at this level of management in the company. Now you've painted a vision for them to be able to move up the organizational chart in this industry, in your company, and A players like this. If you just say, hey, we're $15 an hour, we're $20 an hour, we expect you to do this, 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 and this. You just gave a task list. There's nothing exciting about that. You're the same thing that they're looking at leaving. But when you say, here's what we expect of you, we've got a team of winners, and we win with winners in this company. And this is how we operate. And we're going to share the profits with you. So that way you get paid off of your efforts. If you're not putting in efforts, you're not going to get paid as much. If you're putting in more efforts, you're going to get paid more. We like to win with winners, just like we said in the beginning statement. And here's where you're coming in at, and here's the skill set. So this is the value that you're adding, and you're getting compensated for that value. We're going to also invest in you so that you will be able to create more value. And as you bring more value to the table, your pay is going to show that compensation. So now you're painting this vision of growth with the company as the company grows. A players love this. And you've got to set this stuff up in your ad, in your copy for your ad when you're looking at doing your recruiting. Me and Kevin spoke about it many times before in the group on these lives about how one of the best resources of recruiting is your current team members, because A players hang out with A players. I can look back in my 20s where I was not as much of an A player. I was an A player, but I wasn't acting like an A player. And everyone that my close network has completely changed from when I was in my 20s to when I'm in my 30s now. But also my life has changed because my actions have changed. These people that are acting like A players are hanging with A players. And those are the people that you want doing your recruiting, because that is the best testimony that you can have. That's the best sales pitch out there that you could have in the marketplace, is a current team member talking about how great it is to work for you because they have bought into the vision and they've gotten a chance to experience the culture and the atmosphere that's being produced. This is why I invest so much money, not only because of branding and marketing, but I make sure that I buy really nice uniforms, comfortable uniforms that make them feel sharp. and we purchase them and hand them the 7 days worth of uniforms, even though they work 5 days. All of this stuff builds into that culture and starts to attract A players. When I first started, I remember having Kevin. I remember when I first started my cleaning business, I did a rent to own company. That was my first big account, and I traveled around in the region about an hour outside of the hub of my local market and hit all of these locations every 2 weeks. So it gave me reoccurring revenue, which was massive for me in the very beginning because I had something to count on. I knew my light bill was going to get paid, my rent was going to get paid. But I didn't have a service truck. I wore a regular polo, I bought blue polo shirts, and I wore khakis to work. And I had my basic tools and equipment, more of a janitorial style. I was doing detailing of vehicles, window cleaning, and I had a little portable carpet cleaner that was really not good enough for carpet cleaning. So I used it for upholstery cleaning mainly for these rent to own places. And I made my first hire. And I got a little bit big to where I couldn't have my personal vehicle, going on a route and me going on another route. So I had that first hire take his own vehicle. I took on the responsibility of his tires. He had bald tires when he started, and he started to have flats and everything. So I started paying. This was my little way of trying to say, hey, I'm going to take care of you because you're taking care of me. And this guy was actually a hustler. Something happened and he ended up having to move out of state, and I lost him. But it just goes back to you better be taking care of those that are taking care of you, because an A player wants to be appreciated as well. They need some acknowledgement they're doing good. Pay is not always enough acknowledgement. Gift cards is not always enough acknowledgement. You need to be face to face, whoever is their management, and they need to communicate, hey, you're doing a great job, and this is why you're doing a great job. And one of the things I've found very hard in giving praise and acknowledgement to someone is we like to think, well, that was just a part of your job.
Yeah.
And it is. But the reality is they still need to be told that they're doing great. So anytime you see that they're executing their job good, make sure you mention it, because it's going to throw fuel on it so that they'll keep doing it good. If they think nobody's paying attention, then it's lacking motivation for them to keep executing at a high level.
I think that's all great stuff. Here's a couple of things I did that I kind of had to learn the hard way. So we were traveling and going into other states sometimes to do complexes, and I was cheap and I was staying in like crappy places and stuff. And two problems. First, we had somebody break into our van one time and steal a bunch of shit. So we all woke up at like 6 a.m. and all like half the stuff was gone. So I was like, all right, you got to stay in better places because people don't steal stuff at a DoubleTree hotel or wherever.
Right.
You got cameras. You do it at some Motel 6. Yeah, some shit might happen. And I started staying. I was using Hotwire. I still do. And I was getting all like 4-star places. You pay another $30. The difference in the hotel is so extreme that I started saying, hey, how do I make these guys want to travel? And then I started giving a per diem on food. I remember guys couldn't believe this. I was given $36 or something per diem on food. And the guy was like, so what happens if I don't really eat that much? What if I pay $20? I'm like, well, then you could keep the 16. And he was like, what? They couldn't believe that. There was like one guy, he used to bring food and he'd still get his money.
Yeah.
And his water. I'm like, you could do that. And it made it to everybody wanted to travel. They were fighting to do it. And they would start telling everybody, one of their buddies on the weekend, like, yeah, man, we stay in these nice hotels. He basically pays us to eat, all these other things. That's what you have to do. Make it so that on Friday night, they're telling their buddies when they're having a beer, and their place sounds way better. Your place sounds way better than theirs. That's how you can start attracting. If they're good players, they become your best salesman at that point. Because the opposite's true. If they're like, oh my God, this guy's such a jerk. And they're just sitting there like, they're now recruiting them to come over to their place. It's what happens. People want to do it. The other part is make sure you're recruiting before you need it. It's like,
Absolutely.
It's dig the well thirsty. There's a guy, I didn't do a call with him. He used to work for me. Now he's a sub. He has so many problems with employees and stuff. but I know what he's doing. He like waits till the last minute. He's not recruiting these people. You have to start getting around, taking your time and finding people to get a flow. So you're looking at 10 or 12 resumes or emails and not one or two.
Yes. Yes.
And you got to have that so you can start. It's almost like getting reps. You start seeing the same stuff, and then you can take your time, or you have an assistant do it and call up on those call up on where they were working before or where they're at. I mean, I understand if they're at somewhere now. You have to get references and stuff. You can tell so much. People do not call on references, and I was guilty of that. You will find out so much when you talk to that person, just from their tone, and even if they want to be bothered with you.
Well, here's a question I'll ask them in the interview. I'll say, when I call your prior manager, what are they going to say about you? I want them to tell me, because then I want to hear in their own words, because and I don't say if, I say when, because I want them to know I'm going to call, so you might as well just kind of shoot straight. But, well, I was a hard worker and I was a fast learner. I did have some times where I had to call in because of, and then they start giving the excuses why they had to call in and didn't show up for work. Mm-hmm. And so they'll start pulling out. They'll always start with a little bit of positive, and then they start pulling out with the negatives of the real talk about it. I think it's super important in those interviews to ask those probing questions so that you can get a feel of what they think others think about them and what they think about themselves. And we've spoke about this before. I try to get a sense of their personality. I do ask questions based off of my core values within the company. I create questions around those values and ask those. And after I see that they're kind of a culture fit, then at that point, that's when I'll get into those skill set questions. So like if I was hiring a bookkeeper, tell me how long you've worked within QuickBooks. Do you use QuickBooks Online or desktop? Because we use QuickBooks Online. Are you certified in any of those? Do you have any certifications to show me on those? Those are those skill set questions you start after you get the culture fit, the mindset.
I love that. I love asking them when you call, because I say the same thing. If I say, when I call your past employer, what are they going to tell you about being on time? Because that's huge for me. I mean, it is. That would drive me nuts. If you got 3 guys in a van waiting and somebody shows up 12 minutes late, they just sent you a bill for those 3 guys.
Yeah.
We will leave you. But sometimes that puts you in a bad situation because you need that 4th guy to finish. It's not like I'm giving enough work for 4 guys, not 3. So I will ask them about that. And sometimes they'll tell you, well, I was pretty good about it. I was pretty good. Like, are you on time or not? I also ask them, what do they say? What will they say about your attitude as a team player and helping others and everything? Because I want people with good attitudes. I made this mistake, and I'm going to kind of crap on roofing guys and stuff. But there's so many guys that are like 38 years old who I hired who had 20 years of experience. But it's like, why aren't you doing your own thing? Why aren't you at another company? If you're a good roofer or a good guy on the roofs and stuff, you have so many opportunities to work for people. If you're 20 years in and you're on Craigslist or whatever, I'm basically I'm just taking on a bunch of problems that other people got rid of. I want somebody with a good attitude. I'd rather take a guy with a great attitude to learn who doesn't have the skill set, because you can get that person there much quicker than, this person has this many experiences on a roof and they're great with ladders, and they come on there. And then when people are trying to tell them, they're like, man, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this forever. I know what I'm doing. They want to do everything their own way. I love a positive attitude, make people feel good about it, and that person can learn, and then you can get behind that person.
I think there's 2 reasons to work for someone else. One is to get an education, and the other one is because you're making so much money that you can start deploying money and other assets. And you've got a money generating vehicle. It's just not your own business. It's a W-2 or a contract job that you're working. There's really only 2 reasons I can see why somebody would work for someone else, and it's those 2. You got an education, or you got enough revenue coming in that you're able to throw money towards side hustles. And when I say side hustles, I'm talking about assets that are creating new money for you and building net worth.
Yeah.
So what's some of the things that you've implemented in your company? I know for me, the larger I get, the easier it is for me to attract A players. John Crutchfield, when I bought my building a year ago and started doing remodeling, he said, dude, just think about the talent you're going to be able to attract because the building that you're in now compared to the building that you moved out of. Because the building I moved out of was a great deal. Landlord was fantastic, but it was kind of a shithole. We didn't do a whole lot to it. And the building I'm in now is very impressive to the point that I had the Chamber of Community Development Foundation show up and do a ribbon cutting and everything else. And everybody was like, man, really nice building, well organized. And I knew it was, but I'm able to attract better talent. So what's some of the things that you do, especially when you were in the field and had a bunch of W-2s that attracted better talent?
I think what you're saying there is, I think having really nice vehicles that are wrapped and look good and they feel good, like if they ran into somebody they went to high school with and they're getting out of that vehicle, I think all that matters.
So cleanup and maintenance on the vehicles is a big deal with that, because I've seen newer vehicles that are, you got the Burger King wrapper falling out the door when they get out, the energy drink rolling out the passenger side when the door is open. Like all of that it doesn't matter how new it is if it's not cleaned up.
I think it has to be, you have to have nice vehicles, or you have to get there quickly. You have to have equipment that works and it's organized and they can always get it. They're not looking for certain screwdrivers or anything. Yep. I think this really matters. And I didn't do this all the time. Sometimes we had kind of like beat up stuff and we were, you're coming up. But I just think that they run into people and people see them. They want to be proud of the company they work for as well. I think a nice, clean shirt and dress code and everything, they want to be respected. And if they look like that, you kind of act like how you look.
I had a 16-year-old vehicle and the equipment was 12 years old inside the vehicle when I tried the carpet cleaning business for the first time. And I remember that I set out in a yard and just buffed and polished on it. It didn't have peeling paint or anything, but I got on Vistaprint, got me a big ass magnet to stick on the side of it so I would have some branding. I got in and just detailed the heck out of the equipment and the floorboards and put Armor All down so that the grayed out black plastic looked black again. The bumper on the front, it has the plastic accent piece on the chrome bumper. I got on the internet, or went to AutoZone and was looking and asking the techs there at the AutoZone, what will restore the black trim back to black that's all, dusty and grayed out looking. And anyway, it had to go into the repair shop for the machine itself, the carpet cleaning machine. And the salesman came out and he said, man, I just want to commend you on your vehicle, because it is the cleanest vehicle in our shop, the most impressive looking one, and it is the oldest. And that spoke loads to me, and I still to this day remember it, and that happened when I was in my 20s, because you can have old equipment when you're first starting out, but it can look really good, and your techs can still be proud of it if you take care of it and maintenance it the way you're supposed to, and you put some pride into it. And I think a lot of people miss that, and they think, well, it's old. Man, you can still polish a turd up and it can still look good. And that's what you got to do when
that's what you got to do when you do that. Keep it clean. I think that you were doing the thing with commission. I think healthy competition is good too. So for me, I had different crews, and I used to tell them, this crew did 49 buildings today.
Oh, yeah.
You did 40 once. And then I would just leave it at that. And by the end, half the time I was just coming up with numbers. Whoever I was talking to did less.
Yeah.
And they would be like, no way. They didn't do 49. I said, they did 49.
I think there's power when you assign numbers to it. It's just like your sweatshirt says you've been on 10,000 roofs.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
This way. You see it?
Yeah. You're in a 10,000 roof club.
10,000 building club. It's in English and Spanish. if you walk into if somebody sees you wearing a sweatshirt, it's like wearing a black belt.
Exactly.
There's no question about it. It's instant respect. Cause I had another one for 3,000 and a lot of people had the 3,001 and so few had the 10,000 and they wanted it so bad.
It's a level of respect.
Yeah. They were like, well, I'm close to that. I'm like, you're not even near it. You're like at like 4,200.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to keep the stats.
So, and that goes back to just having data and not drama, like our mentor Mark Evans says. And I remember when I was selling cars, they would sit there and we did monthly stats. So it would show how many warranties you sold, how many cars you sold. There was different clubs to get into based off of how many cars you sold, which means you got paid more per sale. So let's just say the first tier was 5. That was just your level. And then you were in President's Club if you sold over 12 cars for the month. And at President's Club, it was like a $75 increase per car, $50 or $100 increase per warranty. Like everything, your pay got bigger. But they would sit there and post it up, the entire company and the sales department, where you could see what all of your peers were selling and what level they were at. And people would gather around as soon as it got posted, and they'd be like, oh, man, he beat me. And here's what happened. The people that were consistently selling, you would notice people would go and ask them, man, how are you consistently hitting these numbers? And this was the number one. This is just a little sales strategy here. This is what the guy always said, because he never took what we called ups, fresh people coming through the door. Like you never saw him standing in line waiting for a fresh customer. He said, I follow up. He said, I follow up with customers. And then I also ask my customers, do they have any friends or family that are looking to buy vehicles? Because that's how I make my living. And he literally hardly ever took a fresh customer, but stayed busy and always was a leader on the board. But it created that competition, healthy competition within the group, because everybody got to see. And that's what you did with those numbers. And I think anytime you can assign a number to a position, it's going to create that level of competition, especially if you have two in the same position.
I think that's so true.
So let's go.
Having them compete against and make it fun too, So when at the end I had a lot of people from 2 countries, Honduras and Guatemala. I used to rent out a whole indoor thing, and they'd play soccer, and they would be Honduras versus Guatemala, and their wives would come and their kids. It would be a big deal. They'd be waiting for it for like 2 months on the WhatsApp text and everybody talking about it.
Yeah.
But I used to keep,
I was just going to say, competition is such a great tip to have within your company. If you're not setting up levels of competition, then you're missing out, because players like to see themselves succeed and be acknowledged as winners.
Here's another thing I did too, that I tried it with one crew and they did really well with it. And I did it with a couple others, but sometimes it's hard because I would tell them, especially if they were going away on a trip, I'd say, hey, if you guys want to leave on Sunday night, you can leave at like 7 o'clock. It's a 3-hour drive or whatever. And if you get done on Thursday, you get paid for the whole week.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They always got done on Thursday.
Yeah.
They would always figure out a way to get done. And you know what? Then you have 3, everybody's like on the same, I'm sure they're having breakfast. Like, let's go.
They were hourly paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would just basically give them a whole bonus. Yeah. But it would work for me too, because I gave them 5 days worth of work. Say it was $20,000 worth of stuff. That was the number I wanted them to hit. They would figure out. They would finish really late on Thursday, 5:30 or something, drive home. They'd be home. And now they got a whole paid day off. It's like I gave them a 3-day weekend. They loved it. And then there would be a couple guys, like I'd still work. I'd say, you can go work on the other crew. You can work.
Yeah.
If you want to go get extra money. But most of the guys, they just loved it. And then they would have, that's a cool thing to have extra time with your family on a Friday and everything. And you're telling your girlfriend or wife or whatever, like, no, I got paid today.
Yep. Yeah. So that's one, I think that's one thing that resourceful people, well, let me not even say that. anytime I'm running up against a problem or I want to get more efficient or better something, I always ask myself what would motivate me. Some of the best coaching I get is when people ask me questions to extract information out of me. So when I was struggling with team members and identifying what we wanted, especially on my entry level team members, I was asked this question. They said, what does this character, what is this avatar, what does this team member's characteristics look like? Like, describe this person to me. Was the actual question that was asked to me. And I had to sit there for a second and really think, like, okay, how would I describe this person? And so on a whiteboard, I began to write down, motivated, pays attention to detail, has a professional appearance, doesn't quit before the job's done, communicates well. And I started writing this list of things down. Then all of a sudden I got clarity on what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to do in so many situations. If we want to motivate our team, what motivates us? What gets us out of the bed in the morning? What makes us want to stay late? And that's why I'm such an advocate of not doing an hourly paid situation and doing more of a profit sharing, because that's what gets me out of bed. I know if I bust my butt today and get done quicker, I made more per hour because I have contract prices. They're not paying me by the hour, my customers. They're paying me by the job. And so I like to really reflect in that way. And to simplify our whole conversation today, what motivates you? What makes you want to do it? What would make you want to come work for yourself? That's really the questions you should be asking yourself.
And Chris, on your post a couple days ago about the commission and how you do it, and I totally agree. If they're not being incentivized to move fast, do a good job. I also have like an incentive, no callbacks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't want you to just say like, hey, I ran through it. So when I did that 4-day, I'd say, yeah, you can get paid no callbacks. Because when I was on cruise, we would go like, and I have a couple guys, you never get callbacks. It's too easy. You walk around, I say walk around like you're a property manager trying to complain about something.
Absolutely.
Like you're 72 hours ahead of them. They're not even going to walk around for 3 days. So there's no need, there's no excuse for. If you're in doubt, clean it up. If it's like, hey, could they think that's us, even though it's not? Clean it up. Take 2 minutes. So I would tell them like that. But you were saying, what happens when you build that commission-based thing is your team changes. You'll get the culture different. You'll get players who really want to do it. You will repel guys who don't want to do that, who don't want that. I had a friend, he's a good guy, back in the day, where he was going to go straight commission for selling for this company. He had been getting a base of like 60, and then he was getting a smaller commission. The guy only really wanted to make $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
And he was showing me the commission. I'm like, man, you're going to make over $100,000. He was like, I'm not even going to do it. And I said, well, why? And then he said, nah, because it's like, I could make 50 if it doesn't work out, and then I'm going to have trouble. I said, yeah, but why would you? If you get up and get busy, you're going to make 100,000, 120,000. Everything's going to change. He didn't do it. He just didn't have it in him. And the guy, to this day, I don't know what he's doing, but I'm pretty sure he's making 70 grand still.
And that's exactly why you want something like this to be structured this way, because you will remove those that are not going to propel your business forward. I mean, I have pulled so much micromanagement away from me and my leadership by setting up compensation structures like this. And we've only been into it just a few months at this point. And it was scary as hell when I was starting to make the change. And because I didn't know if it was going to work. I never tried it. It was something new. And I didn't have somebody in the disaster cleanup business that said, hey, here's the model. This is what you should mimic. It's been successful. Because we all like, it works over in that industry, but it doesn't work in this industry. But I went ahead and pulled the trigger because I was tired of running it the way I was. I was tired of all the micromanaging of, are they going to show up on time? How long of a lunch are they going to take? Are they taking a smoke break and still getting, clicking their hourly rate, having to go and do repeats on services that should have been taken care of correctly the first time? It just eliminated all of that. We had even set up a point system for attendance like a manufacturer does because we were having attendance issues. All of that fixed itself when we went into compensation.
Yeah.
Because now those guys that you have camaraderie with inside your team, inside the company, you're out there working alongside, you show up because you say, I got a bellyache, and then they see you on Facebook. You're as they would call it, their old lady posting on Facebook that y'all are out eating lunch, but you had a bellyache. They're going to say, yo, I'm over here making your money. You need to come over here and help with this instead of going out and having a date day. And it just pulls that it changes the whole culture. I can't speak any negative about it yet.
I totally agree. And you have to, if other people know that people on the team are pulling that kind of BS, they'll start trying to do too. I used to make examples out of people. I mean, we have kids, you got to do that with kids sometimes too. Yeah. That works so much in our household. When one kid gets in trouble and loses their phone or whatever, everybody else gets in line because you don't want to be like that kid. So I hated people being late. And if you were late, sometimes the van would leave. And like if we were going out of state or something, they'd miss the whole 3 days. Absolutely. But here's the thing I would do. They'd say, well, I remember this one guy was late and he was good, but he was just such a pain in the ass. He drank too much. And he would say, well, they'll be back on Thursday, man. I'll be there Thursday. I said, no, you're not on there on Thursday. No, they're back. And then you got 2 days suspension. Come back Monday.
Yeah.
And no, I say this, let's do a phone call on Saturday at 3:00 and I'll see if I've filled that position. I'm sure I did that to this guy one time. He never was late again.
So it goes back to talking about digging the well and always be recruiting. We respond differently when we don't feel like we're in a place of need, in a place of scarcity as an owner. Mm-hmm. And when you feel like you don't have a ton of people to pick from, like in the market right now, everybody's like, it's so hard to recruit. I just can't find. But if you know that you've got applications sitting in your drawer, people that have jobs currently, thought that they might like your atmosphere, your company better, that position better, then you can make those phone calls and you will completely respond differently to these negative team members that aren't producing anything positive when they show up late, when they don't show up at all, when they halfway do a job and have to go back because a customer complained. And I've seen it in myself. I even hire differently. If I'm waiting to hire or recruit when I need to hire someone, I will take a warm body over someone that really I get a great vibe through the interview on. It'll be like, I'll train them up. And then they never stick around. They never last because I won't let them because I'm so aggravated with their performance. I'm like, why did I do that? But it's because I was in a place of scarcity mindset because I didn't have a pipeline full of applications. So one way to do that is when you're going out and people are asking, how's business? I don't care if you've got a position open or not. You should constantly say, fantastic. We're always looking for great new team members. That should be your response every time somebody says, how's business going? Because you may not be looking for one right now, but I guarantee you, if you got a 10 and you had an 8 in its current position, you would get that 10 and replace the 8 if they were knocking on your door saying, I really want to work with you.
And the other thing is, it's the same as the digging the well when you're thirsty for investors. You can do the same thing. Say you have an outstanding waiter and say, hey, I know you're working here and anything, but if you know anyone that works like you, man, you work hard. I have this company and we're looking to hire, or just let me know, because they're thinking about themselves, but they also might know someone. If you're constantly having those conversations, they're super friendly and easy to have. You're being nice to someone. You're giving them a compliment. If you're having those conversations all the time, you're going to be filling up your pipeline of people.
Yeah.
But if you don't do anything, it's like, then you just I call it Craigslist. Like you're just looking for a warm body. I had a lot of warm bodies.
Yeah.
You don't even like them. They don't even do anything. They're basically like almost 20% of a qualified worker.
Yeah.
But
it's not
you
worth
just got to get stuff done, and you're tired of having a scarce team. It doesn't work. You should always be talking to people, and then you can get in different groups and try to different ways you can find people. I like people. So if they're not working for someone, I want to see somebody who made effort who didn't just like reply to an ad with like a super thing. I want to see that they went to an organization. So when I was hiring all these people, I was hiring a lot of Hispanic people. There was an organization in this one city where I was hiring a lot, where they had an employment agency. These people had to come in, they had to fill out paperwork, they had to do a lot of things. Like, it showed me like they're taking initiative.
Yeah.
I want something like that, rather than like, yeah, I mean, I'll go on my phone for 30 seconds and say, "Are you still hiring?"
Right. Right. I get those all the time and I can't stand them. I'm like, the ad's still out there, isn't it?
I used to have ads, and they would have like 5 questions specifically, like, "Are you currently work? You know, what's your experience on this?" So I could tell, and they wouldn't just ignore all the questions. "Are you hiring?"
I
Yes,
get
they will.
applications back where they've ignored several of the questions
I
and they
know.
don't get looked at anymore. Like,
I
that's a
don't even look at them.
qualifier. And that's why you got to pay attention. So I guess let's recap it on the takeaways for attracting A players and keeping A players. I think number one is you've got to paint a vision of opportunity
Mhm.
for A players. The other thing is when you're creating your ad copy, put some type of instructional portion inside that ad copy. First part needs to be talking about why they want to work with you. That's creating the vision. The second part needs to be like, here's how you apply. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you know if they can follow instructions. And then the other thing is what do you look like in your marketplace? Ask yourself the question, why would I come work for myself? Am I offering them something that I would take the
Yeah.
opportunity to come to come work for? Is this a company I would want to come work for? Is this a position that I would want to take on? And then the other thing is just what do you look like in your marketplace? Do you have nice, well-maintained equipment, uniforms, vehicles, even down to what does your social media look like for your business? What is your website and everything looking like for your business? If you're talking to an A player, they're researching you. They're
They
not
are.
coming in as need. They're checking out what does this company look like? How many 5 stars do they have? Because that's a big deal when an A player moves positions.
And talk about them, not you. That ad should really be. Ben Hill gave us a really good earful on that. Like, you got to get
Yep.
people excited, because they all have to think about themselves and like, "Oh wow, this is good for me." Nobody cares that you've been in business since 1977,
No.
or it doesn't matter. I
Mm-mm.
I hate when businesses, that's marketing too. How does it help me? That's how I do all my marketing to customers. I want to, how am I solving your pain points?
I've
Nobody
never
cares how many states I'm in.
I've never purchased and I've never hired based off of someone's time in a marketplace. It's based
Means
off of
nothing.
social proof. Does someone else vouch for you that's used you, that's experienced your product or experienced your service? That's my number one purchasing criteria as a
Well,
consumer.
one thing, and this is for sales, but it works for anything, is I was kind of like trying to get a sales position a long time ago, like 8 or 9 years ago. And I was telling a friend of mine who was in sales, and he was kind of lukewarm when I was giving it to him. Like, I wasn't hiring him, I was just telling him about it. And he goes, "Well, let me ask you something, Kevin. When you were 22 and up and coming, would you have wanted this offer? Were you going to make a lot of money on this, or were you just going to get by?" I said, "I remember, I think about that all the time. You have to make it so you can go back on your own mind, say, when I
Yeah.
was this age, would I want this? Would I want to work for this company? When, like, the 24-year-old version of me?" And if you say, "Wow, that's a good deal, I'd take that," they're thinking the same thing. Be honest with yourself. Because I was giving a sales thing that was like, you're gonna have to work. You weren't gonna really. You were gonna get by. It wasn't gonna be great. And he saw that, so he said, "You wouldn't take that, would you?" I said, "No, I wouldn't." So he said, "So he won't either." He said,
So
you'll get what you put out."
this is a great way to sum it up. If you're cheap, you're going to get cheap. If you're willing to pay for the best, you'll get the best.
Yep.
So look at it as an investment and not an expense, because you truly do in life get what you pay for. I don't care
Yep.
if you're buying a service or if you're buying a team member, you're going to get what you pay for. And you want somebody that knows their worth, because then they're going to perform at an optimal level. If they don't know their worth, then you've got some mental training you got to do. And that's probably something you don't want to apply your time towards.
And if you have trouble getting over that hump of paying people more, if you get the right people, it's going to free up your time. When you pay people less, that can go for virtual assistants to anything.
Yeah,
The lower you go, the more time you're spending. The higher you go, the less time.
absolutely.
And since we're both, you got to go where your company's at. So, but we're trying to buy back time. We're not trying to, hey, I want to save $20,000 a year, but spend $80,000 of my time. No way.
Absolutely, man. That's how I move in life now. So
Me too.
dude, I love this. Looking
All right.
forward to the mastermind. Y'all, if you haven't, if you're contemplating and you want more of a hand-holding experience and not more of this monologue type interview atmosphere that's in our lives here, hop into the war room. We did our last call last week. We're doing our second call tomorrow, and we're actually doing a deep dive into one of the deals that one of the members is involved in. This is where you're going to get precise, detailed information on exactly what you need to do next, because everybody's at a different level and a different play in the field at the moment. Some have businesses, they just need to get operations scaled out. Others are in W-2. Others are in the acquisition process, but kind of need to know what that next step is and making sure that they're not buying a bad deal. And this is where we come together and say, hey, here's our opinion here. This is what you need to be aware of. You're purchasing a board of advisors is what you're doing for a low fee of $500 a month. So check out the War Room. If you're interested, hit me or Kevin up. We'll send you a link over so that you can get in. And right now it's a pretty awesome group. And you're going to have a lot of personal interaction because we're still pretty small at the moment.
Yeah, get there much faster. I had a couple guys message me. I killed like 2 businesses, Chris, this week. I even told them why. I did it in a voice text in 90 seconds. I wouldn't have known that before. I just killed it for them. I said, hey, I try to kill businesses. If I can't kill it, you're going to make a lot.
Absolutely.
And then let's just say everything's good and everything. I said, let's get the thing and let's go over it. But that's the kind of stuff we're doing. We got a lot of experience, and we'll tell you what we think is good and not. And you need that. This is serious business. All you need is one. So you don't want to find you get a business and it's like, yeah, that was the wrong one.
I agree 100%.
I got a friend who bought a business, told me about it a year later, and I was killing his business. And he was like, you know what? I wish I'd talked to you 2 years ago. Because you're telling me everything. Because I was telling him why it's even worse than he thinks. And it's
not what to do, it's what not to do. That's what you're paying for.
Yeah, he got a Quiznos and he ended up losing it.
Man.
I would have I was killing his deal. He should have. That was a long time ago. We should have talked before that.
Jeez. All right, Blue Collar Millionaires. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Share this group. We want this group to get massive, because the bigger it gets, the community gets, then the more resources we have within this community.
Absolutely.
That way, if you're looking for capital, you can post, hey, looking for capital. If you're looking for a deal, someone will have a deal. If you're looking for an operator, there's an operator sitting in the community. So let's grow it. Y'all please share it. Appreciate y'all tuning in. I'll see you at Miramar Beach, Kevin.
Yeah. Chris, I'm going to stay on with you for a sec.
All right.